This is Coda Radio, episode 280 for October 23rd, 2017. Hi everyone, and welcome to Coda Radio, Jupiter Broadcasting's weekly talk show taking a pragmatic look at the art and business of software development and related technologies. This episode is brought to you by our two fine sponsors, DigitalOcean and Linux Academy. I'll tell you more about those great sponsors as this here show goes on. My name is Chris, and joining us, perhaps from his bunker, perhaps from the road, only time will tell us, it's our host, Mr. Dominic. Hello, Mike.
Hello, Mr. Fisher.
Hello, sir. It's good to be back with you. Back in our traditional Monday time slot, too. I've been pre-warned, so I've brought a hard hat, but I don't know what it's about. I've prepped myself.
I don't want to be too inappropriate on the air today.
Yeah, right.
But I am holding... Excuse me, Mr. Bladder of a 9-month pregnant woman. That's right. That's right. Chris
That wasn't
pregnant.
in the show, though.
I forgot.
You put it in the show, so it's still on you.
Still on me. So in my hand, I have something big, black, and beautiful. I'm kind of stroking it, and it seems to like the touch. It does.
Really? And the touch hasn't been disabled?
No, the touch has not been disabled. Can you guess what it is?
I thought I had a guess what it was, but now I'm thinking, is it an Echo?
It is not an Echo.
Okay.
But that was a good guess.
Is it a phone? Because that pretty much would describe all phones as well.
It's a phone. Can I give you a hint?
Yeah.
If you had a kit for your home, this device would be good to control it.
If I had a kit for my home, is it a Google Home?
No.
There's no way it's a HomePod, dude. There's no way it's a HomePod.
It is not a HomePod.
Okay, all right, okay.
What controls the HomePod?
The phone. An iPad?
It is an iPhone 8 Plus. I upgraded.
I guess I didn't say iPhone.
You said Google. You said Nexus.
Yeah,
I think you thought I had the Pixel,
yeah,
which I almost did, actually.
So you did. Wow, look at you. Now, not to make this Apple radio, because God knows we're not going to do that. But congratulations. Congratulations. You like it, I guess. Because for me, it's you know what? I say anybody who's got themselves a new phone, congratulations. Good for you. Good.
You know
Good
what?
on you.
I like the better camera, and my other phone inexplicably stopped working. I went to do the warranty thing, and it turns out I had an upgrade anyway. So
nice. And so no 10 for you. Or
no 10 for me right now. I'm just not interested in it.
You know what's funny? I have been working on a new way to get some work done because a lot of times you and I talk about our devices because it's really what extensively it's the greater topic of how we get our work done for the show.
Right.
And I've been working on like a two remote solution workstation where I have two different workstations, one that's up in the cloud on DigitalOcean and one that's physically here at the studio. And they have two very different tasks and they have two very different hardware layouts. And I've been working on this, creating, and I'm trying to make their environments very much the same. So make the desktop environment and the application sets and sync as much of the settings as I can. Make all that the same between them, but use them essentially for different things because basically one has a very fast GPU and access to local huge gigabit networking and huge files here on the LAN, and one's up on DigitalOcean and has access to incredible amounts of storage and unbelievable network speeds. So it's two very different work types, but I want to be able to just log into either one and just get right to work from any system that I'm on. I want to be able to stop worrying about having my programs logged in on my desktops, about having like my profiles in Chrome where I share them here in the studio, these machines, like just one remote system. I log into it with one app. I install that remote desktop app on all my computers and all my devices, all my tablets, and I get right into it. So I'm just early days, but I tell you what, it changes something about the way I look at like reloading systems in the studio. It makes that way easier because I know if I get into a pinch, any work I need to get done, I can just log into that remote system, either one of them. And even when I'm sitting now at workstations here in the studio, I'm often just logging into the remote system and just using the workstation in the studio as a dumb terminal. It's pretty great because it means I can work from low bandwidth situations, high bandwidth situations. Anyways, so I'm gonna get it all put together, and I'm gonna talk about it more in some future show somewhere once I get it all dialed in. So I along the same vein, like working on that kind of stuff, getting a new tool, changing the way you work a little bit, it sometimes makes huge differences.
So the idea is that you're going to remote into these machines basically and just run the desktops.
Yeah, I'm trying to use a high performance remote desktop system that's secure and doesn't require a lot of fiddling.
You have reinvented time sharing.
Yeah, but my own systems. It's great. It's great.
I tried to do something like this in 2015 for builds. I tried to do, and I don't want to get too deep into the Apple stuff because we know how upset people get. But I'm bitter. I tried to have like an array of Mac Minis that would basically do iOS builds and code signings, automated deployments. This is before that was like built into Xcode, before you could easily automate Hotkey app and things like that. It was mixed, I would say.
Yeah, there's pros and cons. It's gotten better. So I used to do this too way back in the day. And then, of course, I supported it for hundreds and hundreds and 700, 800 users. Right. But now it's there's something about the state of data and privacy and all of like now everything's all synchronized and logged in. Like if you sit down at one of these systems here in the studio and open up Chrome, Chrome is just one persona away, and you have all of my bookmarks. You can open up tabs and go to Web Telegram and be logged into my Telegram, into my Discord tab, my Google Docs. Like it's all right there because I sit down at this computer every single day and I do stuff on air. I kind of have to set these systems up so I can use them. And what I'm looking at now is maybe I can stick all of that in these remote systems and keep it safe. And then when I sit down and I walk away from the system, I log out. It's better than remote users, or it's better than multiple users on the system because there's no data left behind, and there's no I have no qualms with just nuking a system and paving it and just reloading it from scratch because I don't lose anything.
Well, theoretically, the system you carry could actually be pretty lightweight, and you don't need a whole lot of power.
Right, yeah. Maybe even a Chromebook. So, yeah, that is...
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah. But anyways, that's been exciting for me because it's sort of let me do some stuff that was high bandwidth requirements when I was on a really slow connection recently, and I was like, okay, game changer here. I'll talk about it more at some point. New tools. I'm jelly of your phone. I'm good with my phone right now. I'm holding tight. We are going to talk a little bit about conditionals today in a certain language that may run on that phone. Also,
yes, optionals. You mean yes?
Maybe quote unquote, maybe some Haskell stuff. See what I did there? Maybe. And then if we have time, from the Dominic Totally Called It segment of the show, it's the end of the startup era, and we have the data to prove it. It is good, gone, and dead.
Oh, no. Oh, we'll have time.
Okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah. In fact, I'm fired up. I want to open with that.
Do you want to? Okay, all right. Good enough. We'll warm up. We'll warm up here a little bit. So this is from TechCrunch.
Yeah. So TechCrunch has a good habit of taking my ideas from 3 years ago and acting like they're brand new revelations that no one's ever said before. And so remember, if you listen back to Coder Radio in 2014, which, by the way, Chris, there was a Coder Radio in 2014. You'll know that I was pretty concerned, right, about monetization and particularly about how were these startups who were getting these ridiculous valuations, right, actually going to ever get out from under those valuations? Meaning, how could the companies perform to a level that, makes that real, right? And the answer was, well, they're not. Right? The answer is that they didn't. And how many episodes did we do where we talked about the bubble is going to start letting air out? It's going to start letting air out. Mm-hmm. And sure enough, it took, I would say, end of 2015, you started to see some unicorns commit Harry Carey. And yeah, and now TechCrunch on the bleeding edge as always in October of 2017 noticed, this doesn't seem good.
Yeah, they do. Now, what they do that I think makes it stick here is they go back and they sort of quote some facts right to your face, and it's hard to argue with them. They say the web boom of 1997 through 2006 brought us Amazon, Facebook, Google, Salesforce, Airbnb, etc., because the internet was a new thing. And then the smartphone boom of 2007 to 2016 brought us Uber, Lyft, Snap, WhatsApp, Instagram, Twitter, etc., because they were really good smartphone apps. And then they draw in a data point that is hard to also argue with. They say it's no coincidence that the seed funding is down in 2017. It's no coincidence that Alphabet, Amazon, Apple, Facebook, and Microsoft have grown from the 5 big tech companies to the most valuable public companies in the world. The future belongs to them, and to a lesser extent, their second-tier ilk. And then he says, consider Y Combinator. By all accounts, the gold standard of startup accelerators, famously harder to get into than Harvard. Then consider its alumni. 5 years ago, in 2012, it's the 3 poster children, and they were clearly poised to dominate their markets, become huge companies, Airbnb, and Dropbox, and Stripe. And so it came to pass. If you fast forward to today, and you look at Y Combinator's poster children still, well, it's unchanged. In the last 6 years, they funded more than twice as many startups as they did in their first 6. But the author challenges you to name any of their post-2011 alumni, and any of them that are well-positioned as their ones in 2012. It's sort of dried up, and he makes a good case as to why all the new technology spaces require much more than something startups are geared to offer.
Yeah, and I would add a few points to that. Also, more and more you're building on a platform, or you're in some way actually financially, paying one of the big companies, right? I even think about my own, right? Alice at the Mad Botter, we are building on the MS Spot framework, and a lot of the processing for Alice is actually on Azure. So that's a big dependency.
Indeed. But if you look at what you're trying to pull off, it's not really so take AI. The author points out AI doesn't just require top tier talent. That talent is all but useless without mountains of the right kind of data. And who essentially has the best data? Well, it's the big 5 again.
Right.
And their Chinese counterparts.
Let me tell you something. If I could get some of that Alibaba data, man.
So it's like, what else can you do, though? What else can you do for building Alice? You don't have an option. You can't go get the data sets that Google has.
Yeah, we're trying a slightly different strategy. We're obviously, we're using Microsoft's Lewis engine, which is their ML engine, and it obviously does a lot of machine learning under the hood. But I'm actually trying to. And I don't want to get into a deep AI conversations, but there's different types of AI you can have for bots, right? And while machine learning is certainly the most common and probably I would say the most popular right now, it is not. It does have that disadvantage of if you're small, you have a dependency for a data set on in our case Microsoft. But I also have a theory that it's actually not going to be the one that ends up being the most effective for the things that we're trying to do. It's great for the low-hanging fruit, right? Like Alice can easily figure out based on, natural language processing and just like tons of data, i.e. machine learning, that, Valentine's Day is February 14th, right? Things like that. But there are other things, more intuitive types of algorithms you might want to work with that machine learning is, in my opinion, not necessarily the right approach for the problem space. Now, I could be wrong. And I have no background in data science, so this will be fun.
And then to really kind of the only other point that really sort of resonated with me, there's several others, including crypto and AR and VR and self-driving cars, but hardware, such as drones and IoT devices, they're hard to prototype, they're generally low margin, they're expensive as hell to bring to market, and they're very expensive to scale out and build, and it generally leads you into some sort of litigation at some point. Look at Fitbit, Jawbone, DJI, HTC, all of them, are struggling to some degree.
It's also not a 5-year flip, right? Let's just think back a little bit. Think about all the there was I mean, one app comes to mind, Oyster, which was, I don't know if you remember this one, Chris, it was an iPad and Android app, an iPhone as well. It was basically Netflix for books. It was out for maybe 6 months, and then Google hired them. And immediately shut down the service, overnight. Like, hey, we've been acquired, and gone. And why? Because these big companies have two problems, or really two things going for them. They're bureaucratic. So if an app is a good idea, it's often easier for the M&A department just to buy the little company than to get a product off the ground. And the second thing is that especially in California, I mean, they are starving for developers right now. I think that some of their standards are stupid, and they could alleviate the pain themselves if they invested more in mentorship and like an apprenticeship model. But they brought in younger, just out of college or college kids that didn't necessarily need to be the top 5% of the graduating class. But because somebody at Google is working on the admin panel, right? Although if you've ever used the Google for Work admin panel, that may not be the case. Don't even get me started on the new Azure layout. But there are strategies that they could take that would alleviate this pain. Instead, the strategy they've taken is political, right? I mean, they're up there pushing for visas. Sheryl Sandberg's in D.C. right now. And they just every time a little company develops a nice looking iOS app or whatever, or a good looking web app, they just buy the company, shut down the product, make the people sign 5-year commitments to work for them.
Yeah.
That's it. It's just a super expensive form of recruiting.
Yeah, and of course they have the money to burn. So I have one more to submit from the Mike Was Right department. If you'll hear it, if the judge is willing to hear it.
I wish there was more, but keep going.
There probably is, but okay. So let's take a moment right here and let's thank Linux Academy, and then I'll bring it in. It's a little tease. Yeah, I know. That's how I do, man. That's how I do. And I think also I'm gonna have a different take on this next one than you, and I'm gonna argue that it's a good thing. But first, we got to talk about Linux Academy. I feel like if you've listened to any topic on the show and you've wanted to expand upon it, Linux Academy is a great option for you. Also, if you want to move forward in a career, I remember one of my biggest reoccurring self-doubts was actually taking the test to get certifications. I knew that everybody wanted me where I worked to have the certifications. The more certifications I had, the more clients that they could dangle me in front of, the bigger name clients. Bigger name clients like to have those certifications. And also when I was a 9-to-5, same thing, If you get a good solid certification that's in line with your job, it helps on the next review. And I knew it, but I couldn't get over the nebulous nature of training and then the anxiety of taking the test and the doubt that I would actually be able to do it. That's where Linux Academy would make a huge difference for someone like me. Now, I'm able to use it casually, but having played around with it now for years, I can tell you this would have been an invaluable resource for me. They have hands-on, scenario-based labs that give you real experience, which is a fundamental feature for me to build up that confidence that I'm going to be able to pass the test. They have self-paced, in-depth video courses on every Linux, cloud, and DevOps topic you might want. Full-time humans are available whenever you get stuck. And then for the certs specifically, they have courses created specifically to prepare you for those certification exams. And they have a community stacked full of Jupiter Broadcasting members. They have a nice public profile where you can display to management or your clients the achievements you've had. And Linux Academy has worked really hard in the industry to become a well-established name, and that profile page holds weight now. And if you're busy like I am, they have a course scheduler that you can work with to set a time frame for your goals and stick to them. linuxacademy.com/coders. You go there to support this show, and you sign up for a free 7-day trial. linuxacademy.com/coders. Support the show and support your mind, right? Because you got to learn. linuxacademy.com/coders. Mr. Dominic, do you have the learner's syndrome? It's not really a thing. However, Joey makes this connection over at hackernoon.com. And basically, it's the age-old problem that you've talked about when it comes to web frameworks over and over and over again. It's this fundamental FOMO that you have, and that is if I start building something and I really invest into it, and I feel like I'm learning it and I'm becoming an expert and I'm really creating something great, at the same time, I can't help but feel like I am missing out on learning the new cool technologies and have a fear of being left behind. I know we've talked about this, and I know you've talked about this problem, and I want to give you the floor because I'd like to argue that that fear is legitimate, it is justified, and it is that little part inside you telling you you're becoming less and less competitive. I thought maybe you'd have a different view.
Yeah, I think I do. Okay. So I don't think that fear is justified just because, I'm looking at this guy's chart here. The scale, right? The scale of, let's just take front-end web development, of new JavaScript frameworks, the variants on the JavaScript language, right? Dart, TypeScript, CoffeeScript. Really pick your poison. Backbone, Vue, all 17,000 versions of Angular, React, which now is not encumbered by Facebook's crazy license. There's like 20 others. I'm getting overwhelmed just thinking about it. Why does it matter? Like if your application, now you shouldn't be dogmatic, but if your application works fine and you're providing value either for your business or to your customers, I don't think it particularly matters if you write something in, let's say, React or Vue or Angular. You just have to make sure it's something that's easily maintainable and that will be around for a while.
Yeah, fair enough. I would completely agree with that. I think the scenario in which you choose to buy into is what makes all the difference. So if you are buying into, I'm going to build something and this is going to be a revenue sustainer for me and I can invest in this for years and years to come, then you're right. You're absolutely 100% right. However, not everyone is in the luxury of that position. Some people are trying to create something, it's not getting traction, and they want to rebuild and try something else, but now they've invested tons and tons and tons and tons and tons of their life into, say, PHP or ASP.NET or whatever, and they want to shift to something else, and they have to start over on a lot of things. And I think that is a worry in the back of their mind because it's something that does legitimately happen in the tech industry over and over and over again. The reason why they are worried about it is because that does happen.
Okay, so it does, right? Most recently it's happened with Objective-C, much to my deep
well, it pretty much happens to all technologies eventually in this industry.
Yeah, but Slack is written in PHP, right? On the back end. There are a lot of people running a lot of high-grade applications in ASP Classic still. Hell, there are COBOL dudes running around, right, making a ton of money because, most of them are dead, so supply and demand. I guess I don't see why. Are you saying the risk is that you will become unmarketable? Or the risk is that you think your application or whatever it is you're building will be better because you use the new hotness? Because I think that's a fallacy.
No, it's definitely just more like market trends, getting on the hype bandwagon where people are willing to invest time and energy.
All right, but even if you just did the JavaScript hype bandwagon for the front end frameworks, every 6 months you'd have to change technology.
Yeah, that's where I was going, is there has to be a balance where you keep a radar of what's out and what seems to be trending in the right directions per your personal requirements, while at the same time staying focused on the work at hand and not bailing until it's the right time. So it's like this impossible spectrum that you have to monitor of technologies and then decide which ones are the trendsetters that align with your goals, and then decide when they have eclipsed the thing that you're currently invested in. And it's an impossible recipe.
Like if you specialize in like a few technologies, you can develop your own libraries, your own, code snippets, references that you can use later in future projects.
Right.
You get better at working with the framework, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
If you're constantly switching, you're not doing anybody any favors, right? You become less efficient, therefore more expensive to your customers.
The famous saying is you become jack of all, master of none.
Right. You become a compromised, shitty thing, kind of like Swift.
Did you? Yeah. I agree. It's an impossible, anxious anxiety-inducing situation, and my advice is the only thing you can do is invest in methods that feel like they inform you of what you need to be informed about that's out there, and set your own goalposts. Like Mike's saying, there's nothing wrong with investing time into something and becoming an expert in that. And as long as it's something that's going to be around even for 5 years, you're probably okay. You know, things change a lot in 5 years. It's there's so many other things to worry about, but I do totally connect with the issue. Because it happens in open source, it happens in media, definitely happens in media, in like broadcasting and all that stuff. It's a big thing. It's so in several different aspects of my life where I follow different technologies and trends. It's a constant sort of struggle. So I definitely can appreciate the problem, but I think I probably fall where Mike does. Like I said, Mike was right. That was the point of that segment. Mike was right.
Thank you very much.
Now. We don't have much more from the Mike was right segment. Are you feeling like it's time to get into code? Are you feeling like it's time to talk optionals?
Yes, I have this. I have this new WinRT app I'm working on. Because Mike's also been very, very wrong.
Wait. Now, I thought you're kidding, but then that last comment there makes me think you're not kidding. You better be kidding about the WinRT app thing, right? You are kidding.
Course I'm kidding.
Okay, all right. I just want to make sure.
No, I am kidding, yeah.
Okay, I mean, for a second there, I thought I was going to have to get in Lady Jupes and drive down to Florida and have some kind of intervention.
But Chris, look at this Nokia phone. It's coming back.
Oh, it hurts. It's too soon. No, but I was surprised to see you wanted to talk Swift.
I do. I want to talk optionals in Swift. And get ready, crybabies. There's actual code.
Here we go. It's linked in the show notes even.
It is. And I can't see the screen, so I'm assuming you put it on the air.
I did, just magically right then.
Boom. All right. So, first of all, I want to preface this is a feature of the Swift programming language. Therefore, it is, by extension, bad. Swift is bad. This is bad.
Sure, right. And is this specifically, when I was reading about it, this is a Swift 4 thing? Because Swift 4, Swift 4 introduces optional type, which handles the absence of a value. Optional say either there is a value and it equals X, or there isn't a value at all.
So that's a new addition to Swift 4. But optionals have been in Swift basically the entire time. Actually, the entire time.
Gotcha.
So today we are not talking about the Swift 4 additions.
Okay.
We're talking about basic concept, what's an optional.
Okay.
So if you take a look at our gist here, you'll notice I have a class. And I know Swift diehards, you're like, that could be a struct. I know it could, but it's not. So too bad. The class is called Gungan, after our favorite recurring guest, Misa here.
Absolutely.
All right, so Gungan, the Gungan class has some properties. A name property that is a string, and then the sneaky little 5th grade diploma property that's a string with the question mark. Now, fun fact about Swift is you would think that string and string question mark are the same class, wouldn't you? The same type? They are not.
Okay.
In Swift, anything with question mark is basically it is an optional that could contain. So how it works is 5th grade diploma there is an optional type that could contain a string value. We get into the concept of unwrapping. So think of optionals, and this is like assuming you have no knowledge here. So this is basic introduction. Think of them as Christmas presents. They're little boxes, right? Like Chinese food boxes. You don't know what's in there. It could be mushu pork. It could be a dog turd. It could be nil.
Okay.
There you go.
I like this so far.
So we have a couple functions. We have func, which is because function's way too long to type in Swift. It's weird. Greet Jedi string. So again, we are passing in a string that it's a named parameter, so it's just called Jedi, and we're returning a string. In this case, everything's great, right? Some basic string concatenation. If you call that and you actually send it a string, you'll get return, hey, Jedi, Misa, your name, right? So great, everything's happy. But notice how when I initialize name at the top of the file, I put var name :string equals empty quotes. If you have a property that is not an optional in Swift, you must initialize a value. Now, that is a stupid value for me to have initialized, but I'm lazy. What do you guys want? Theoretically, you would give us some default name, like Jar Jar, perhaps. In the event that you pass a correct, so we created let jar equals Gungan. We created a instance of the class, right? If you pass it a name such as Qui-Gon, it's all good in the hood. If you try to pass it nil, this is a big change from Objective-C. So in the past, in Objective-C, if you had done like jar, dot greet nil, it would Objective-C could do a runtime crash, and we don't like that, right? And in some cases, because of message sending, it might actually just not happen, right? But in this case, it would crash. Swift, this is the main advantage, or one of the main advantages of how Swift handles all this optional stuff. The compiler will not let you do this. So that line there, line 32, is actually, if you throw it in Xcode or an Xcode Playgrounds, it's a compiler error. You can't do that.
Okay.
Just not allowed. So, great. Oh, that's a little dumb, right? Like, what if you're not sure? Let's say this is a GUI application and you are like doing a D&D character generator and the person's creating a Jedi, but you know how users are. Some joker is going to put in an empty string, right? Or they're just not going to fill in the name field. So now we have func dark side greet. So same idea, right? Same structure, just using different variables. Notice though that the string there has an exclamation point. That is very, very bad. What that does is it tells Swift not to worry about it. It tells the Swift compiler not to worry about it. But if you pass in a name like Count Dooku, it works. If you pass in nil, the compiler will not catch that error because you are unwrapping it. That's what that means. The exclamation point unwraps it. So what you're saying to the compiler is, I guarantee you that there is a value here. And it crashes horribly. Okay. And it's a runtime crash too. Huh. So it's the same as a if you've ever done iOS development, it's like an exe bad access kind of error, right? Mm-hmm. The idea here of using the unwrapping, you might want to do that in a case where you absolutely 100%, swear on Lady Jupes, there's a value. In any other case, you should not do that. I mean, I understand, and I find some of this stuff in Swift frustrating, and we'll get to the actual optionals in a second. And it is tempting to just like start slapping exclamation points everywhere, but don't do it. This is one of the primary advantages of Swift over Objective-C. So doing that, you're getting all the crap and losing all the benefits. Now, you'll remember in my little example that Jar Jar has a 5th grade diploma variable. But you also notice that I declared that one with an exclamation point, like with a question mark rather. That is an optional. What that means is it may or may not exist, right? It's our Chinese food box. There's mushu pork or nil. That's it. In this case, he has a diploma or he has nothing. So you can do all little kind of fun tricks. So look at func. I hate it. I'm just going to say function. Function brag about education. Straight function returns a string, takes no parameters. You have this, they call this optional binding. So if let education equals 5th grade diploma. What this does is it will create a variable called education, and it will assign its value to 5th grade diploma, right? So the value of 5th grade diploma becomes education. So let's say 5th grade diploma was like, Seattle Public School or whatever. The education variable would read Seattle Public School. If it's there, that assignment happens, and then we return a string. Misa went to, Seattle Public School up to grade 5.
Whew, that explains a few things.
If it does not, and this is kind of the optional binding trick, the assignment never happens. So no value is assigned to education, and it's not initialized, and you immediately jump to the else clause. And then you just, I just return a stupid Jar Jar thing because it's Jar Jar.
Naturally.
So I know I threw a lot of stuff at you, Chris.
I like it.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It does. It's nice to be able to see it. So if you're listening, I would recommend you go look at the show notes and click on the link to the gist, because that does obviously clear it up. And then play back this part.
Yeah. I think that's a good idea. Now, as with everything Apple calls revolutionary, they are not the first people to think of this. This has been around for a while.
No.
I think the nearest and probably most commonly known example, certainly by the Uber devs, is going to be the maybe keyword from Haskell that you teased at the beginning of the show.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Very good.
I do not have a Haskell example because I do not write Haskell, but it's the same idea, right? You're saying that this value could be nil, right? Or in Haskell's considering it's null, but right. So it is, you are not sure. As much as I find all this exclamation point, this forced unwrapping optional crap annoying in Swift, because I think the syntax is very confusing. I wish they'd done something a bit more like Haskell, like a keyword. It actually will catch a lot of programming errors at dev time of the category of like null checking, right? Having said that, if you do the bad thing I put in there with the exclamation point, it's like force unwrap everything, you are giving all of this up. So don't do it.
All right. But I love that.
He's like, I love instability. There's nothing like having your Google Maps GPS app crash when you're lost in Camden, New Jersey.
Oh, man. Don't trigger me now. Well, thank you, Mr. Dominic.
Very welcome.
Now, I have a couple of questions for you, but first let me mention DigitalOcean. Go over to DigitalOcean.com, create your account, and use our promo code CODERDIGITAL. That'll give you a $10 credit, and with that $10 credit, you can do quite a bit. Now, DigitalOcean is a way to spin up a really fast system. They call them droplets on their infrastructure in less than 55 seconds. And they have SSDs for everything, for the nice, like 3 cents an hour system that I love, all the way up to the systems with hundreds of gigs. Yeah, I said hundreds of gigs of RAM. They have a beautiful dashboard, and I mean beautiful, that actually makes managing virtual machines across data centers all over the world easy, but yet still very powerful. And they have a simple and intuitive API with lots of command line utilities that allow you to run large-scale applications or manage it in ways that snap in with your workflow through bots like we use it through, or even just through apps like on a smartphone. They have block storage, which I've recently just been playing around with more. I just attached 100 gigabytes of block storage to one of my systems. I love how it works. It just shows up as a block device. I take 2 seconds, I add in my FS tab, and I'm done. It's beautiful. But recently, DigitalOcean has introduced something new. Object storage. They call it Spaces, and it's incredible. Securely store and deliver any amount of data with the same simplicity you've come to expect from all things DigitalOcean. You can instantaneously create a cost-effective, reliable storage space using their drag-and-drop UI or their API. And I've used it just to create a few public links that expire, and I've begun fantasizing about ways that we could use it with JBot immediately. And here's the best part. They're letting you try out Spaces 2 months for free. So go create an account. Go to DigitalOcean.com. Use our promo code CODERDIGITAL. Get the $10 credit. And then go try out Spaces and get that 2 months for free. It's a great combo at DigitalOcean.com. Just use our promo code CODERDIGITAL. And a big thank you to DigitalOcean for sponsoring the Coder Radio program. DigitalOcean.com. Promo code CODERDIGITAL. So, Mr. Dominic, what inspired you to actually sit down and put some code on the show? Because I know that's always something you struggle with on an audio podcast, because that's something that can really flop for people that aren't, and really the minority are all watching the video and the majority are listening to the audio. So what made you decide to do it?
Oh, you're gonna trigger me. All right. So, have you noticed the subreddit?
Oh, really? It was in response to the subreddit. It's like a little...
Right. So I want to try a few new things. This is one of them. I mean, I do
you
think
have been brewing on a few things.
Right. It's, I would love feedback on this. Well, I get the desire to have more code on a show called Coder Radio. I can't imagine anybody who was just listening to that in a car found that particularly valuable. The other problem I think we have, particularly with that presentation, is if you're new to the concept of optionals and Swift, that was probably pretty valuable to you, right? and if you're interested in it, of course. But if you've done like any non-trivial amount of Swift or working with optionals in other languages, then that was probably a little below what you would want to hear.
Right, but that's a hard line to walk because the people that would know more are probably getting it from other sources than audio podcasts.
One would think, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that's a challenge, right? Because the alternative thing I was going to do was actually some fun machine learning stuff, show some stuff off from Alice, but that seemed even more dense and hard to do on a podcast.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is why. I mean, it's a challenge. You know, I got to be honest. I don't necessarily think some of the feedback is correct. I think it's easy to say do all these code presentations or whatever, but in practice, it's not good. Right. Or it's not good for everyone.
Right. Yeah.
Like if you're a YouTube watcher, I think that was great. Right?
Yeah. Yep. I agree. Yeah. And which would be about 800-900 people, which is about.
Yeah. Like very right.
It's I don't know. I mean, I don't want to say it doesn't register on the radar, but we love everybody who watches us on YouTube, but. The video version, and more than anything else in this show, ends up being a way people find the show, and then they find out about the show, and they switch to the audio feed.
Yeah. So the other thing I wanted to try was the something I've been talking about, the open source project of the week. And I don't know if we talked about this, Chris.
No, but it's a good idea, and there is a bit of a hole since last on things like that.
Yeah. And so, of course, I'm picking Pop! OS because...
You trolly bastard! You trolly...
That's right. You wanted programming? You got Swift. You want more open source? You get Pop!
That is unbelievable. That is...
All kidding aside, they just had their 1.0 release. It is looking not too shabby.
Yeah, congrats to them. I mean, that's a major milestone for any project. And I have a sense that they're just getting started. I have a sense that if you check back in in a couple releases, it's going to be I hope it's going to be a totally different conversation.
And having said that, I downloaded the Ubuntu beta, and
and it's good. It's so good.
It's that and Firefox Quantum.
I feel like my workstation is in the end of 2017 is really coming together. It's really like I got my remote systems. I've got my laptops with 1710. I feel like I'm in a really good position.
I think 2018 is the year of the Linux desktop.
What about the year of the Home Mini? Because a certain somebody apparently picked one up. I got to be honest, at that lower $50 dot level price, it is way more tempting.
Yep.
I feel like, though, and I'd be curious to know if, of course, you've had the Google Home before, so you already know. You already know you kind of like it, I guess.
Yeah, it's on my desk right here.
Okay, all right. So you're going all in. You crazy.
No, I have an Echo at the house, too.
And which one do you prefer?
I've yet to plug in the Echo.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. It's one of the...
What do you use it for? What do you use the Home for?
Primarily music, I mean.
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah. So you are going to get a HomePod then. No.
So it's kind of a weird situation. I did try out the Mini. I mean, I got it yesterday. I hooked it up. If you've ever used Google AI or rather Google Assistant, you know exactly what it is.
Yeah.
It is not a good speaker.
No. I mean, it's so small.
I bet
it's better than the Dot, but I mean, that's still not saying much.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I got it because I want to write a review of it because I'm very interested in these things, this potential like things that are becoming more common for technology in general.
And front ends too, maybe like an application, a hosted application or service.
Maybe.
I mean, that's really what I see these as for developers as an opportunity. It's like another endpoint. It's another way. It's another place to run your app.
I mean, a certain bot who currently only communicates via text. But the audio quality just sucks. I mean, it's not good. And I get that it's like $40 and it's tiny. I think a better purchase if you're in the market for this is the Sonos One, the new one.
Sure.
But yeah.
Yeah, music is the big thing that they end up getting used by the family a lot for it too. The reason I was asking is I thought maybe he's thinking about loading maybe some sort of like skill, or I don't know I forget what they call them, ability. I thought maybe.
Google calls them actions, I think.
What would it take? What would it take for you to take a product you've purchased and convert that into an action on your half of like actually developing an app? Would it take a product that like, so say you took this thing out of the box, you hooked it up and you went, holy shit, this is useful. This is useful. There's a bunch of really great abilities on this thing, and there's a clear way for me to submit my ability, and maybe even a clear way to connect it and sell it. Like, what would it take for you to convert this purchase into actually developing for this thing? Because they're not hitting that note for me yet, so I assume they're not hitting it for you yet.
No. Well, so there's a few problems, right? I'm of course thinking of Alice in particular. It's not a consumer product, right? It's a bot focused on businesses.
Okay,
so,
and probably this isn't a big business product,
right? And I would say if you are developing some sort of skill, you have to target the Echo. I mean, Amazon won't release numbers, but it seems pretty obvious that Alexa is the most prominent, AI assistant or whatever you want to call it. Lady Tube is what you call it.
Mm-hmm. Lady Tube.
And I would not target the HomePod if you paid me, because I just
what's the point?
I can't even imagine what they're going to charge for that. So
I think they announced the price. It's going to be close to like $380 or something like that. But
of course it is.
There's literally zero user base.
Right, no user base. Siri's kind of crap.
You take that back.
No.
Okay.
I'm not taking it back.
Fair enough. Yeah. Okay. I think your first point was probably the strongest too. I was just curious. Because boy, I sure would I would love for somebody to come along and make these dots that I have in the studio even more useful for business stuff.
Yeah, I would like to too, right? But the other problem is,
do you want that our business is going to be comfortable? So there's a lot of privacy problems, but
there's a reason there's no Echo in the offices, right? Because some joker could just come in and be like, hey, order, yeah. Right,
but there was also a time where there was no iPhones and iPads and MacBooks and no Chromecasts and no Chromebooks in businesses.
But so this is a good product idea for somebody, by the way. There needs to be like the equivalent of an MDM for these things, right? Like a device management, where you can say, this is my Echo that is for the office. Therefore,
yeah. I mean, it seems like a great opportunity for some open source project. Maybe you could call it like Sherlock or Moriarty, something like that, and it would be an open source project that would essentially do all this that you could run on a self-hosted system. Wouldn't that be great if something like that would come along?
That's not is that a thing that really exists or no?
I'm making fun of the Mycroft. The fact that the Mycroft is still not.
Oh,
I know,
savage. That was unnecessary.
I wish them all the best, but god dang it. Like Google and Amazon are lapping the Mycroft project now, and this really would be like a really legitimate open source bot, like AI assistant like this, would be useful for people like you to people like me. It would be very, very useful.
I mean, again, not to keep tying back into the Mike was right segment, the TechCrunch story about the Big Five. That's a problem, right? Mycroft came out with a really interesting tech demo on Kickstarter.
Yeah.
And then because they are little and made mistakes, I can't imagine they can compete. Like it just.
I know now they have the problem of a huge ecosystem of third-party accessories that are built for Echo or built for Google.
I have to say, if I was looking at consumer, which I know a lot of the people listening to the show want to do consumer apps and things, I would be looking at the Amazon platform. They actually just came out with the Amazon Artificial Intelligence Machine Learning Tools on AWS. That is not the correct name, but Google it, you'll find it. And they're doing incentives financially for developers, so they're giving you a break on some of your AWS bills. That's where I'd be going, right? If I was doing something consumer facing, it is in people's kitchen. It has the spouse approval factor. You know what? I have relatives in their 70s who think the Echo is awesome, and they love it.
Yeah, it's like tablets. It has that full age range appeal.
Yeah, again, in fact, as I talk this out, even in the space I'm dealing with, I would probably go with Amazon because it seems like what's going to happen is people are going to say, gee, the Echo's really convenient at home and I have a small business.
Right.
You know what? If I just disable purchases, this might be nice to have in the office. Like that's
who says,
yeah.
you know, so Amazon just recently rolled out voice recognition, just like the others are working on. And you get with that individual Amazon profile support. Well, who says that Amazon won't one day just say, okay, well, now you can create a business profile. And this is your business account. It's not connected to your music or your Amazon.
Can.
Oh, you can?
Not on the Echo, but Amazon already has a concept of like my Amazon account has 2 modes. It has like my personal and it has a business mode.
So they could just extend that to the Echo then.
Right. And you could have like permissions, like again, like an MDM, a management portal, where you say, we can play my music, but they can't see like my, you know,
wow.
What?
Wow.
Right.
Okay. Well, so it doesn't seem like it would actually take them that much to connect the dots.
Yeah. Oh.
You see what I did there, Mr. Dominic? Anyways, it's just a fascinating frontier, and so I play with it a bit and share your thoughts with me, because it's something I that particular, you know, the Google stuff, I'm not really dipping my toes into, but I am curious to see what they're doing, because obviously they're one of the more legitimate contenders in the market. So you can be our boots on the ground for that particular test, okay? Are you good? You hang on to that and then report back?
Absolutely.
All right, well, so why don't you tell the folks before we get out of here some parting words on where they can find you, and you've mentioned Alice, maybe where they can find Alice.
Go to themadbotter.com, and you can find me at Dumanuko on Twitter. Also, follow at the Mad Botter. We're finally going to send out some treats.
Very cool.
At the Mad Botter Inc. Sorry.
Oh, very good. Also, follow me at Chris LAS, the network at Jupiter Signal. And if you're a patron, go check out the new Patreon-exclusive vlog that was posted a few days ago from New York. Content just for you, my friends. And if you're not supporting the network yet, patreon.com/Jupiter Signal. We'd love to have your support. Thank you for joining us this week on the show. We're live now on Mondays. Go to jblive.tv to catch that shenanigans. JupiterBroadcasting.com/calendar to get it converted to your local time. Go to radio.reddit.com and JupiterBroadcasting.com/contact for feedback. Thanks so much for joining us, and we'll see you right back here next week.